Jania rode slowly through the village, the plastic container in her basket rattling softly with every bump in the road. The chin-chin inside was golden and unevenly shaped, still faintly warm from the morning. Tuesdays always felt like this. The elderly residents had come out of their homes waiting for her. Some leaned on wooden canes, others sat on low stools they had carried from inside. "Janny, you came." Mrs. Kang's weathered face broke into a gummy smile. "I told my daughter you would come today, Tuesday like always." "Of course, Grandma," Jania said in her not-so-smooth Korean accent. She placed a clear container filled to the brim with golden chin-chin into the old woman's hands, then added another. "For your daughter, too." "This African girl," Mr. Cho muttered to his friend, loud enough for Jania to hear, "works harder than any of our young people. My grandson just plays on that phone all day." "Grandpa, your grandson has a job in Seoul," Jania said as she moved down the line. She had heard this speech before, almost every time. The distribution took longer than usual. Mrs. Park wanted to show her new photographs of her great-grandchildren. Mr. Song insisted on sharing Makjiali, even though it was barely 8 in the morning. Jania had to politely refuse 3 times before he finally let her go. By the time she started riding back to her small cabin at the edge of town, the sun had already risen high, and her shoulders ached. She was thinking about the bean paste stew she had left simmering on low heat when she turned onto her street and noticed the door. She always locked it. Always. The habit had been drilled into her, not just from childhood in Lagos, but from the 2 years she had spent constantly looking over her shoulder. But now it stood slightly ajar, a thin strip of darkness visible through the gap. Jania stopped her bicycle and parked it carefully. Then she took slow steps toward the cabin and peered through the opening. The stew pot was still on the stove, steam rising gently. The television was off, just as she had left it. Then she pushed the door open. It wasn't long before she froze. There he was. A man folded into the narrow space between her refrigerator and the wooden wall, his knees drawn up to his chest, his face turned away. He wore what looked like dark gray clothing, prison clothing, she realized with a jolt. The fabric was torn at the shoulder. His hair was matted, and even from the doorway she could see that he was trembling. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to call Mr. Cho or Mr. Park, or to run to the police. But something made her hesitate, maybe the way he was trying to make himself smaller, or the desperate energy coming from his hunched body. She pushed the door open wider. It creaked. The man's head snapped up. His face was a mess, bruised along his jaw, with a cut above his eyebrow that had bled and dried, leaving a dark line down his temple. He couldn't have been older than 30. His eyes met hers, and for a long moment, neither of them moved. "Please," his voice came out hoarse in Korean, "please, I won't hurt you." Jania set the basket down carefully, keeping her eyes on him. Her mind was already working, sorting through the consequences. If she called the police, but she couldn't call the police. She can't call the police. "How did you get in here?" she asked. He didn't answer. His gaze shifted to the window, then back to her face. She sighed. She had forgotten to close the window. Then Jania heard it. Faint at first, then growing clearer, the sound of sirens. Police sirens. The noise was so unusual in this quiet town that it made her pulse quicken and her stomach drop in that familiar way it had so many times before. The man's face turned pale. "Please," he said again, "please don't. Be quiet." Jania moved to the window and peered through the thin curtain. Her hands were steadier than they should have been. A police car moved slowly down the main road. 2 officers sat in the front seats. They were driving carefully, scanning the area. One of them pointed toward the cluster of houses near the hillside. She felt the old fear rising, the one she had learned to bury but never fully erased. Police at her door. Questions. The kind of attention she couldn't afford. She looked back at the man. He had pressed himself even further into the corner, as if he could disappear into the wall. "Can you speak English?" she asked, switching languages. It felt safer somehow, having this conversation in a language the neighbors wouldn't understand if they were listening. His eyes widened slightly. Yes, I can. Good. Jania pulled the curtain closed and turned to face him. Because we need to talk, and I need to understand exactly what kind of trouble just broke into my house. His name was Ryan. He told her this while sitting at her kitchen table, his hands wrapped around a cup of barley tea she had made him drink. She kept the lights off, relying on the last bit of daylight filtering through the curtains. It felt safer that way, less visible from the street. I didn't kill anyone, he said. His English was good, though heavily accented. That's what they'll say, but I didn't do it. They're saying you killed someone. Jania remained standing, her arms crossed. She had positioned herself between him and the door, not that she could physically stop him if he decided to leave, but the principle mattered. Her eyes kept drifting to the window, watching for movement outside. My business partner, we had a company together, software development. 2 years ago, he was found dead in his apartment. Ryan's hands tightened around the cup. I was convicted 6 months later. I've been in prison ever since. 2 years ago. The words hit Jania like something physical. She kept her face neutral, but her mind was racing. Are you okay? Ryan asked, looking at her with concern. You went pale. I'm fine. Jania forced herself to focus. How did you escape? Ryan cleared his throat and lowered his voice, just as she had told him to. I saw an opportunity. There was an accident while we were being transferred here. And you ran? She asked. He nodded. I just couldn't go back there when I didn't do it. I have to find the truth. Jania moved to the window again and checked the street. It was empty now. The police car had moved on. You said you were convicted, she said quietly. If you've already been convicted, escaping only makes things worse. I know, his voice sounded hollow. But my lawyer found something, new evidence. A potential witness who saw someone else leaving Minho's apartment that day. Someone who could prove I wasn't there when it happened. But the witness disappeared 2 years ago. My brother will help, Ryan continued. He promised to hire investigators and private lawyers, but I can't do anything from inside a prison cell. I can't search for answers while I'm locked away, so when those doors opened, he stopped. I didn't think, I just ran. She turned around slowly and studied him in silence. He had a broad build, long hair, and skin so fair it almost looked unreal. His face was sharp and well-defined, with soft crescent-shaped eyes. He was tall, handsome, and undeniably strong-looking. Such a pity, she thought, that someone like him might spend his life in prison. You're innocent, and you think this witness can prove it, she said, pulling herself back to the moment. Hopefully, desperation crept into his voice. Whoever they are, they saw what really happened. They might not want to be found, Jania said. Have you considered that? Maybe they have their own reasons for hiding, and those reasons have nothing to do with you. Ryan looked at her. I suppose. You're asking someone to come forward and put themselves in danger, she continued. I know it's a lot to ask, but an innocent man is in prison. Doesn't that matter? Ryan asked. It does, but you can't stay here, she said. I know. I just need a few hours and then I'll. No, I mean you can't stay here like this. She forced herself to think clearly, pushing away the panic rising in her chest. If they're searching houses, they'll come here eventually. I'm the only black woman in this town. I stand out. They will definitely check. Ryan's face fell. Right, of course, I'll go. I didn't say I was turning you in. The words surprised her, even as she said them. But if you're staying, we need rules. He stared at her. You're helping me. I haven't decided yet, she replied. Here, what's going to happen? You're going to tell me everything, the full story, not the short version. Then I'll decide if I believe you. If I don't, you leave. If I do, she paused. We'll figure something out. Why would you risk this for me? You don't even know me. She didn't answer. She couldn't. Talk, she said instead, and make it convincing. He talked for over an hour. About his business partner, Minho, who had been his friend since university. About their company, which had been struggling but not failing. about the investor who had promised funding and then disappeared, about the argument they had 2 days before Minho's death, something about Ryan's brother possibly being involved as the investor. Ryan had refused to let anyone speak badly about his brother. Jania listened closely. Something about the story sounded familiar. It should have, she thought. She had also lived in Seoul before moving to Kaesong 2 years ago. We were supposed to meet that morning to fix things, Ryan said. His third cup of tea had gone cold in front of him. I got there around 11. That's what I told the police. But witnesses claim they saw me there at 9 in the morning, 2 hours earlier. The prosecution used that to say I was lying about my timeline. They said I must have been there when Minho was killed, or that I killed him. The door was open when I got there, Ryan continued. Or at least unlocked. I pushed it open and called out. No one answered. I found him in the living room. And you touched things, she said, keeping her voice neutral. I tried to check for a pulse. I didn't realize he was already dead. I called emergency services immediately, but his voice went flat. It was too late. When the police arrived, they found my fingerprints everywhere on the door, on his shoulder where I tried to turn him over. They found security footage of me entering the building. They found a motive, our argument about money, even though that wasn't true. Everything pointed to me. This witness, she said carefully, did they testify at your trial? No, they didn't, he replied. Maybe the witness made a mistake, she said quietly. Maybe they saw someone who looked like you, but it wasn't you. No, they were very sure it was me. He ran a hand through his hair. I don't know what to do. Then he looked up at her, his expression solemn and vulnerable. Gosh, he's handsome, Jania thought despite herself. If you could help me with some money and a cell phone, I promise to leave sooner. I'll go to my brother, he'll surely help me, and I promise to pay you back. He sounded really desperate that Jania couldn't refuse him. Jania was quiet for a while, as if weighing her options, then she turned back toward the window before speaking. If I help you, I also need something from you. He looked at her with curiosity, wondering what she could possibly want from him. I need you to promise that you'll be careful, that you won't bring the police here, that you won't make me visible to them. She paused. I have my own reasons for staying away from that kind of attention. There was a moment of silence. Then Ryan said quietly, You're hiding too. Everyone is hiding from something. She didn't turn around. Do you promise or not? I promise. Whatever your reasons are, I won't bring trouble to your door. Or, he hesitated, more trouble than I've already brought. Jania finally turned around. In the dim light, she could barely see his face, but she felt the weight of the moment settling between them. Two people running from different things, now trapped in the same small house on the edge of a forgotten town. Okay, she said softly, we have a deal. The next morning, Jania woke to the smell of rice cooking. For a disoriented moment, she couldn't place it. Then she remembered Ryan, the escape, and the decision she had made last night that felt even more complicated in the daylight. She lay in bed for a while, staring at the ceiling. She hoped and prayed that her decision would not expose her to the trouble she had been running from. She found him in the kitchen, standing over her rice cooker with a focused expression, as if he were defusing a bomb. I thought I should make myself useful, he said when he noticed her in the doorway. I wasn't sure how much water you usually use. The line inside the pot. Jania moved past him and turned on the coffee maker. Her movements were automatic, but her mind was elsewhere. She didn't fully trust this stranger yet, so why was she doing this? What time did you wake up? She asked. 5, maybe. I couldn't sleep much. He looked better than he had the night before. He had showered, and she had given him some clothes that once belonged to her ex-boyfriend, left behind when he moved back to Seoul. The clothes were slightly too big on Ryan, but they were clean. I've been listening to see if anyone came by, he added. And, Jania asked, not looking up from the coffee she was pouring. Nothing yet, just the morning walkers. He paused. You have a nice routine here, quiet and safe. I guess, Jania said softly. Ryan seemed to understand there was more behind her words. He nodded slowly. I won't disturb it more than necessary. You already have. She said it without anger. You need to stay away from the windows today. I have deliveries to make in the next town. I'll be gone most of the day. I'll be careful. I mean it, Ryan. No lights during the day. No noise. No shower. I know you already used it, but not again. The pipes are loud and Mrs. Song next door notices everything. She poured coffee into 2 mugs. If someone knocks, you hide. Don't try to be clever, just hide. Understood. He accepted the mug she handed him. You're good at this, at being careful. Jania's hand paused on her mug. Let's just say I understand how important it is. Because you're a foreigner here, or because of something else? He asked carefully. She met his eyes. Does it matter? No, he said after a moment. I suppose it doesn't. We all have our reasons. They sat at the table together, and Jania explained what needed to happen. She would need a few days to gather money enough for a bus ticket to Seoul, for a phone, and for basic supplies. She couldn't withdraw large amounts at once without raising suspicion. In a town this small, people noticed everything. I can be patient, Ryan said. 3 days, 4. Let's say 4 just to be safe. She wrapped her hands around her mug. Your brother in Seoul, do you trust him? With my life. He's been fighting for me this whole time. He spent everything on lawyers and investigators. Ryan's expression softened. If I can reach him and let him know I'm safe, he can help. He has connections and resources. Together, we can find the truth. Find the truth. Jania looked down at her coffee, guilt tugging at her heart. You'll find it, she said quietly. The truth, you'll find it. I hope so, he looked at her. Thank you, Jania, for believing me, for helping me, even though it's a risk. Just follow the rules. That's all I ask. Jania spent the morning preparing her deliveries, packing the chinchin, the coconut candy, and the small butter cookies she had learned to make in Korean style at the hotel where she once worked. They were slightly less sweet than the ones from home. Ryan watched from the table, quiet and still, as if trying to take up as little space as possible. Before she left, she stood at the door and gave him a serious look. I mean it about the rules, she said. No going outside, not even to the back. No lights until after dark, and even then keep them dim. No shower. If you get hungry, there's food in the refrigerator, but be quiet. I'll be invisible, Ryan promised. Good, she hesitated. Something in her wanted to say more. There's a blanket in the bedroom closet if you want to rest. The floor is warmer than it looks. Thank you, he said, watching her leave. The deliveries took longer than expected. The community center wanted to place a larger order for an upcoming event, which meant discussing quantities and timing. Then Mrs. Choi, who ran the center, insisted on introducing Jania to her daughter, who was visiting from Seoul and needed to see that foreigners could make good Korean snacks too. Seoul. The word made Jania's stomach tighten. By the time she headed home, the sun was setting, painting the rural roads in shades of orange and pink. She had stopped at a small market on the edge of town and bought extra groceries, more than usual, enough for 2 people, but not so much that it would seem suspicious. She thought about Ryan, alone in her house all day. She thought about what she was risking, not just hiding a fugitive, but hiding a man convicted of a crime serious enough to carry the death penalty. The house was dark when she arrived. For a moment, panic fluttered in her chest. Had he left? Had the police come? Then she saw a faint glow through the curtains. Very faint, as if he had covered the lamp with something. She carried the groceries inside and found him almost exactly where she had left him. He had moved to the couch and stood up immediately she entered. You're back, he said. There was something in his voice, relief maybe. Yeah, she set the bags on the counter. Did anyone come by? No one. It was quiet all day. I heard the walkers in the morning and someone knocked on Mrs. Song's door around noon. That's all. No police. Good. She took out a container of kimchi jjigae from the local restaurant, still warm. Have you eaten? Just some rice and kimchi from your fridge. I didn't want to take too much. Eat this. She placed it on the table and brought out bowls and spoons. You're too thin already. Prison food must be terrible. It is, he gave a small smile. This smells amazing." They ate together in the dim light. At first, they were quiet. Jania found herself really studying him, the way he held his spoon, the careful way he ate. The bruises on his face were already fatting to yellow. He didn't look like a killer, but she knew that killers rarely looked like anything specific. "Can I ask you something?" Ryan said. "Go ahead." "How long have you been here, in this town?" "Almost 2 years. I moved here from Seoul." "Why here? It's so remote." "That's exactly why." She mixed her rice into the sauce. "Sometimes remote is good, quiet and peaceful." "Were you running from something in Seoul?" he asked, gently, aware he was stepping into sensitive territory. Jania was silent for a moment. "I saw something I shouldn't have. Or maybe I was somewhere I shouldn't have been. The details don't matter, but staying in Seoul wasn't safe anymore." It wasn't a lie, just not the full truth. "I'm sorry," Ryan said. "That must have been frightening." "It was." She looked at him. "That's why I understand why you ran, why you're here. Sometimes the system doesn't protect the people it's supposed to. Sometimes it's easier to run than to trust it." "But you wish you hadn't," he said softly. "You wish you had stayed and faced it." Her throat tightened. "Every day, but wishing doesn't change anything. I'm a foreigner here. The law wouldn't be so kind to me." They finished eating in a heavier silence. Afterward, while Jania washed the dishes, Ryan dried and arranged them carefully, moving slowly so he wouldn't take up too much space. They didn't speak, even though it felt like there was so much left unsaid. The soft clinking of ceramic filled the cabin, making the silence less awkward. Later, after Ryan settled on the couch with the blanket she had given him, Jania lay in her bedroom staring at the ceiling. 4 days. She would give him 4 days. She would gather what he needed and send him to Seoul. Then this would be over. He would be gone, and she could return to pretending the past had never happened. The wall between the bedroom and the sitting room was thin. She could hear him shifting on the couch, trying to get comfortable. She wondered if he was thinking about his brother, about freedom, about the truth he was so desperate to find. 3 or 4 days, she told herself. That's all. Across town, in a sleek coffee shop that looked out of place in the quiet rural area, an elegant Korean woman sat at a corner table with her phone pressed to her ear. "What do you mean you can't find him?" Yena's voice was controlled, but her grip on the phone tightened. "He escaped 2 days ago. Where else would he go?" Her assistant, Mira, sat across from her, scrolling through a tablet with focused attention. "They're checking his family connections now," the voice on the phone said. "His brother's apartment in Seoul, his parents in Gwangju, but there's no sign of him in either place." "He's not foolish enough to go somewhere obvious," Yena replied coldly. "Do your job properly or forget about getting paid." She ended the call and placed the phone down carefully. Then she turned to Mira. "What about the witness?" Mira looked up. "We haven't located her yet, but there's a possibility she may have already left the country." Yena tapped her fingers lightly against the table. "Then expand the search. Africa, America, wherever she might be." "Yes, ma'am," Mira replied. "And find out everything you can about that day," Yena continued. "Who else was in the building? Who else Minho was connected to? Business partners, friends, anything at all." Mira placed the tablet down carefully, her eyes fixed on Yena. "You still care about him?" "I care about the truth." Yena looked out the window at the quiet street. "And I care about making sure whoever really killed Minho doesn't get away with it." "What if it was him? What if Ryan really did it?" Yena was silent for a moment. "He was my fiancé," she said finally. "I know he didn't do it." After Mira left, Yena remained alone at the table. Her coffee had grown cold in front of her. She thought about Ryan, about the way he had looked at her the last time they spoke. Hurt, desperate for her to believe him. She had wanted to believe him. But all the evidence had pointed at him. Yena blamed herself for being foolish 2 years ago. "Where are you, Ryan?" she murmured to the empty cafe. And in a small house at the edge of a rural town, the man she was searching for slept restlessly on a borrowed couch, dreaming of freedom, justice, and all the things that felt impossibly far away. In the next room, the woman who had unknowingly become his protector slept softly. It took Jania 3 days to gather the money. She withdrew small amounts from different ATMs in neighboring towns. She got the burner phone from a small electronics shop 2 hours away, paying in cash and avoiding eye contact with the clerk. On the third night, she counted out the bills on her kitchen table while Ryan watched. 500,001. Not a fortune, but enough to get him to Seoul and survive for a few days if he was careful. "This is too much," he said quietly. "It's barely enough, but I don't have much." She slid the money across the table along with the phone. "The train ticket to Seoul will cost about 50,000. Keep the rest for food and for a place to stay while your brother sorts things out." Ryan picked up the phone, turning it over in his hands. "I don't know how to thank you." "Don't thank me yet. We still have to get you out of town." She stood up, glancing at the clock. It was nearly midnight. "My neighbor, Mr. Beek, he lends me his truck sometimes for deliveries. I'll tell him I have an early morning run to the neighboring town. He won't ask questions." "You're taking me all the way to the bus station." "Just to the outskirts. Less police presence than the main terminals." She had already mapped it out in her head and planned the route. Years of being careful had taught her how to move without being seen. "Pack the clothes I gave you. We leave in an hour." Mr. Beek's truck was older than Jania, with a stubborn clutch and a heater that only worked on the passenger side. But it started on the first try, and that was all that mattered. Ryan climbed into the passenger seat, pulling a cap low over his face. Jania had made him wear one of her oversized hoodies, the kind that swallowed his frame and made him look younger, less threatening, less like an escaped convict. The roads were empty at this hour, just darkness and the occasional streetlight painting everything in shades of orange. Jania drove in silence, her hands steady on the wheel, her mind racing. This was it. In a few hours, he would be gone, back to his life, his problems, his search for truth. And she could return to her quiet existence, pretending this week had never happened. Except she knew she would not forget, could not forget. They reached the station just as the sky was beginning to lighten at the edges, that deep blue-gray that came before dawn. Jania pulled into a side street, away from the cameras, and put the truck in park. "The first bus to Seoul leaves at 5:30, she said, not looking at him. "You have about 20 minutes. Stay in the shadows until then. Don't talk to anyone." "I know." Ryan unbuckled his seatbelt but did not move to leave. "Jania." "Go, before someone sees you." He reached for the door handle, then stopped. "I will pay you back, I promise. 100 times over, just like I said." "I'll believe it when I see it." She tried to smile, but it felt wrong on her face. Ryan pushed the door open, letting in a rush of cold air. He stepped out onto the pavement, then turned back, leaning down to look at her through the open door. "Can I?" He paused. "Can I have your number, your real one, in case I need to reach you, or when I want to pay you back?" Jania's first instinct was to say no, to keep that distance for safety, but something in his expression made her reconsider. "If you get caught, delete it immediately," she said. "Don't let them trace it back to me." "I won't." He pulled out the burner phone, fingers ready over the keypad. "I promise." She told him the number. He punched it carefully, then looked up at her. "Let's meet again," he said, "when this is all over." "Maybe." She did not believe it, but she let him have the hope. "Don't forget about that money you owe me." He smiled, the first real smile she had seen from him. Then he closed the door and walked away, his figure growing smaller in the side mirror until he disappeared into the early morning shadows. Jania sat there for a moment, her hands still on the steering wheel. Then she put the truck in gear and started the long drive back to Kaesong. The house felt wrong when she got back. Not wrong like something was broken or out of place. Wrong like something was missing. The silence was too heavy, too complete. For 3 days, there had been another person breathing in her space, occupying her couch, existing at the edge of her carefully controlled life. Now there was just her again. Jania stood in the doorway of her living room, looking at the couch where he had slept. The blanket was folded neatly on one end, the pillows stacked on top. He had cleaned up after himself before they left, washed his dishes, left no trace, like he had never been there at all. She thought about making coffee, but the idea of sitting at her kitchen table alone suddenly felt unbearable. Instead, she lay down on her bed, still wearing yesterday's clothes, and stared at the ceiling. This was what she had wanted, was it not? Her quiet life back. No complications or risks. So why did it feel like something had been taken from her? She thought about her ex-boyfriend, Minjun, the way he had smiled when he convinced her to come to Korea with him. "We'll start a business together," he had said. "Import-export, your connections in Nigeria together with my knowledge of the Korean market. We'll be rich." She had believed him, had taken the money she had saved for years, money meant for her siblings' school fees and her parents' house repairs, and followed him to Seoul. Within 6 months, it was gone, all of it. Gambled away at underground casinos she had not known existed. Lost on horse races, on card games, on promises of one more bet, just one more, I can feel it this time. She had left him in a tiny apartment in Itaewon, her savings gone, her visa running out, her dreams in pieces. She had been angry then, furious, but mostly she had been tired of hopping for things that never came. That was when she had gotten a job at a foreign hotel in Seoul, a job that took her freedom and left her stuck in a small town, unable to go back to her country. And now she had let a convicted murderer sleep on her couch and given him $500,000. Jania laughed, a bitter sound in the empty room. She still did not know if Ryan was telling the truth. Still did not know if she had helped an innocent man or made a terrible mistake. But at least, for 3 days, she had not been alone. The bus finally reached Seoul and Ryan alighted and headed for the train tunnel near Yongsan Station, his cap pulled low, his shoulders hunched. He had memorized his brother's number years ago. Everyone in the family had, after Siwon had risen through the ranks at his law firm and become the one they called when they needed help. He found a quiet corner behind a convenience store, checked his surroundings twice, then dialed. The phone rang 3 times before Siwon answered. "Hello," his brother's voice was careful and professional. "Bro, it's me." Silence, then, "Ryan, is that you? Where are you? Are you hurt?" "I'm in Seoul." Ryan closed his eyes, leaning back against the wall. Just hearing his brother's voice made his chest tight. "I need your help, bro." "Oh my God, Ryan, you..." Siwon's voice cracked. "You shouldn't have run. You've made everything so much worse. Do you know what they're saying about you? Do you know what this looks like?" "I know, but bro, I didn't do it. I swear I didn't kill Minho. And there's evidence. There's a witness who can prove." "I want to believe you." Siwon sounded exhausted. "I do, but the evidence..." "The evidence is wrong. Someone lied. Someone set me up." Ryan's voice rose, and he forced himself to lower it. "Please, you're a lawyer. You know how to investigate. You know how to find the truth. Help me." Another pause, a longer one. Then Siwon said, "Where are you exactly?" "Near Yongsan Station, in the tunnels." "Stay there, don't move. I'm coming to get you right now." Relief flooded through Ryan so strongly his knees nearly gave out. Thank you, bro. I knew I could trust you." "Just stay hidden. I'll be there in 30 minutes. Don't talk to anyone." "I won't, I'll wait for you." The line went dead. Ryan leaned against the wall, letting his head fall back. 30 minutes. Half an hour and his brother would be here, and they could start fixing this. They could find the witness, prove his innocence, and undo the nightmare his life had become. For the first time in days, he let himself hope. 28 minutes later, his phone rang. Ryan answered immediately. "Hello." "There's been a change of plans." Siwon's voice was different now, tighter. "Come to the parking structure on the east side of the station. Level 3, I'll meet you there, it's more private." "Okay, I'm on my way." Ryan put the phone away and moved out of the tunnel, keeping to the shadows. The station was busier now, early morning commuters streaming in and out, everyone focused on their own destinations. He pulled his cap lower and joined the flow of people, just another tired traveler in a city full of them. The parking structure was less crowded. He took the stairs instead of the elevator, his footsteps echoing in the concrete space. Level 3 was nearly empty, just a handful of cars scattered across the vast floor. He was halfway across when he heard it. Footsteps, multiple sets, fast and precise. The smell of gunpowder and smoke was something he could never miss, having stood out during his military days. Ryan spun around and saw them, 2 police officers moving toward him with purpose. One was already reaching for his radio. His heart dropped. He ran. Behind him, the officers shout, "Stop, police!" But he did not stop. He ducked between cars, jumped over a concrete barrier, his breath coming in rough gasps. There, a shadowed corner near the elevator shaft. He pressed himself into it, making himself as small as possible, and held his breath. The footsteps grew louder, passed him and stopped. "He's here somewhere," one officer said, his voice crackling with static from his radio. "We got a tip he'd be on this level. Search every corner." A tip. Ryan's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out with shaking hands. Siwan was calling. He answered, pressing the phone tight to his ear, not daring to speak. "Ryan," his brother's voice was heavy, sad. I'm so sorry, but I couldn't. I can't risk my career for this. My family and my reputation, you have to understand." Ryan's voice came out strained. "You called the police. Turn yourself in, please. It's the only way. If you cooperate, if you show remorse, maybe they'll give you a lighter sentence." "I didn't do it." The words burst out of him, too loud. One of the officers' heads snapped in his direction. "I know you believe that," Siwan said quietly. "But believing it doesn't make it true. Turn yourself in, Ryan. Let the system work. It's your only option now." The call ended. Ryan stared at the phone in his hand, his brother's betrayal settling over him like ice water. The footsteps were getting closer. He had to move, had to run. But where could he possibly go? His parents? No. He had left home at 19 against their wishes, determined to make it on his own. Determined to prove he did not need their traditional expectations or their safe paths. His father had warned him about Minho, about the business, about trusting the wrong people. "You'll regret this stubbornness," his father had said, and now here he was, a murder suspect, an escaped convict, abandoned by the brother he had trusted most. For a moment, just a moment, Ryan regretted everything. Regretted leaving home. Regretted starting the business. Regretted ever thinking he could build something better than what his parents had offered. The officers were 2 rows of cars away now. Ryan pulled up his keypad and without really thinking punched in a number. His ex-fiancee's number. He hovered his thumb over it and paused. But then he remembered. The way she had looked at him in the courtroom, the doubt in her eyes. "Did you do it?" she had asked, and when he said no, she had looked away, had not visited him in prison, had not answered his letters. She did not believe him either. He had no one. His parents would not forgive him. His brother had betrayed him. His ex did not trust him. His best friend was dead. There was only one place left. One person who had helped him without asking for proof, without demanding explanations. Ryan scrolled to Jania's number, the one he had entered just hours ago. His finger hovered over the call button. This was crazy. She had already done more than anyone could ask. She had risked everything to help him escape, given him money, and got him here. He could not drag her back into this, could not put her in more danger, but his finger pressed the button anyway. Back at Kaisung. The grannies were in high spirits that evening. Jania sat wedged between Mrs. Cho and Mrs. Park at the low table in Mrs. Cho's living room, a bottle of Makjiali making its rounds. They had invited her for dinner. Or rather, Mrs. Cho had shouted the invitation across the street, and refusing would have been more suspicious than accepting. "My daughter sent me this," Mrs. Park said, pulling out her phone with stiff fingers. It was a new Louis Vuitton purse. "She works so hard in Seoul, my sweet girl, always thinking of her mother." "Very nice," Mrs. Song said, her voice thick with competition. "My son bought me a new television, 65 inches. I can see every wrinkle on those drama actors now." "That's because you need glasses, not a bigger TV," Mrs. Cho muttered, refilling Jania's cup. "Janie, you judge, whose child is better?" Jania froze, the cup halfway to her lips. This was a trap. It was always a trap. "I think," she started, trying to find careful words. Mrs. Park cut her off. "And my grandson, he's studying medicine, top of his class. They say he'll be a neurosurgeon." "My granddaughter is already a dentist," Mrs. Song countered. Making good money, married a nice boy from Seoul. Janny, Mrs. Cho pressed. My daughter is the best, right? Before Jania could come up with an answer that would offend no one, her phone rang. All three grannies stopped talking and looked at her. Sorry, I should take this. Jania pulled out her phone. It was an unknown number. Whoever it was had just saved her. Excuse me for just a moment. She stepped outside into Mrs. Cho's small garden, the cold air sharp against her face. Hello. There was breathing on the other end. Jania! Ryan's broken voice came through in a whisper. What happened? She kept her voice low, turning away from the house. Are you okay? I failed. Jania closed her eyes. Where are you? The station. There are police everywhere. I don't know how long I can stay hidden. He was trying to stay calm, but his voice was breaking. Listen to me. She made her voice firm and steady. Find somewhere to hide, somewhere safe, even if it's just for an hour. Can you get to the Han River? Yes, I think so. Go there, near the Banpo Bridge on the north side. There's a park area. Stay out of sight. I'm coming to get you. The last bus to Seoul left from the neighboring town at 8. She could make it if she left now. Stay hidden. Don't use this phone again. I'll find you. She ended the call and went back to Mrs. Cho's house. The grannies were visible through the window, still arguing about their children's achievements. Jania stuck her head in the door. I'm so sorry, there's an emergency. A friend in Seoul needs help. I have to go. Now, Mrs. Park looked shocked. It's almost dark. I know, I'm sorry. Thank you for the makgeolli. She did not wait for their complaints or questions. She ran to her house, grabbed her bag, hopped on her bicycle, and pedaled away as fast as she could. It was fully dark by the time Jania found him. The park along the Han River was quieter at night, just a few late joggers and couples walking hand in hand. Then she saw him, sitting quietly behind the grass. Ryan, she called softly. His head snapped up. For a second, he just stared at her like he could not believe she was real. Then he stood, stumbled toward her, and without warning pulled her into a hug. He was shaking. Or maybe she was. Maybe they both were. You came, he said into her shoulder. You actually came. I said I would. She let him hold her for a moment, then gently pulled back. We need to go, now, before someone sees us. They walked to the bus station in silence. Jania bought 2 tickets to a town halfway between Seoul and Kaesong. Safer to break up the journey, harder to track. On the bus, Ryan took the window seat and stared out at the darkness streaming past. Neither of them spoke. There was too much to say and no way to say it. So they sat in silence as the bus carried them away from Seoul. We'll figure it out, she said quietly, not sure if he could hear her over the rumble of the bus engine. But his hand found hers in the dark space between their seats and squeezed once. The bus rattled through the darkness, its headlights cutting weak paths through the night. Most passengers were dozing, heads resting against windows or the shoulders of strangers. But Jania sat upright, her eyes fixed on the small television mounted at the front of the bus. The late-night news was on. She had been half watching it, exhausted but too restless to sleep, when the anchor's voice sharpened with that particular tone saved for breaking stories. Police are stepping up their search for escaped convict Park Ryan, who fled custody 6 days ago during a prison transfer. Park was convicted last year in the murder of his business partner, Kim Min-ho. Authorities warn that he should be considered dangerous and urge anyone with information to contact. His face filled the screen, the mugshot taken after his arrest. Jania's breath caught. Around the bus, a few passengers stirred, squinting at the screen. She moved without thinking. Her hands went to her neck, unwinding the scarf she wore, soft, dark blue, long enough to be useful. She turned to Ryan, who had gone completely still beside her, his face visible in the flickering light of the television. Don't move, she whispered. She wrapped the scarf around his neck, pulling it up over his nose and mouth, arranging it as if he were cold. Her fingers worked quickly, tucking and adjusting, until only his eyes were visible. Those eyes stared at her with such raw gratitude it made her chest ache. Keep your head down, she murmured. Pretend to sleep. He nodded once and leaned against the window, pulling his cap lower, becoming just another tired traveler on a late-night bus. The news segment ended. The anchor moved on to weather reports. The danger passed, but Jania did not unwrap the scarf, and Ryan did not move. They stayed frozen like that until the bus finally pulled into Kaesong just as dawn began to break. The timing could not have been better. The elderly morning walkers would not be out for another hour. The street was empty and quiet, painted in the soft gray pink of early morning. Jania unlocked her door quickly, brought Ryan inside, and only breathed properly once they were both safe within her walls. She watched as he unwound the scarf, his movements slow and exhausted. He looked worse than he had when she had first found him hiding between her refrigerator and the wall. The hope that had flickered when he called his brother was gone now, replaced by something heavier. "Sit," she said, gesturing to the kitchen table. "I'll make tea." "You don't have to." "Sit." He sat. Jania filled the kettle, her hands going through the familiar motions while her mind raced. When the tea was ready, she set a cup in front of him and took the chair across from him. "Tell me what happened," she said. "Everything." So he did. His voice was flat and steady as he described the phone call with Siwen, the parking garage, the moment he realized his own brother had called the police. "He said he had no choice," Ryan said, staring into his tea. "That he couldn't risk everything." He laughed, a bitter sound. "I'm his family, or I thought I was." Jania's hands tightened around her own cup. "I'm sorry." "Don't be, it's not your fault." He looked up at her. "You barely know me and you came all the way to Seoul. You risked everything. But my own brother," his voice cracked. He stopped and swallowed hard. "I don't understand people anymore." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Jania asked, "Is there no one else? No one else you can call for help?" "No one. Friends, other family." He shook his head. "There's no one, Jania." The weight of those words settled between them. Jania looked at this man, this stranger who had broken into her house and somehow become something more, and made a decision. "Then stay," she said. "For a while longer. Let me think. Let me figure something out. Maybe I can help you get out of the country, start somewhere new, somewhere they won't find you." "No." The word was firm and final. "I'm not running anymore." "Ryan, listen to me. I didn't kill Min-ho. I won't spend the rest of my life hiding from a crime I didn't commit." His eyes met hers, and there was steel in them now. "I need to clear my name. I need to get my life back. And I need to find out who wanted both Min-ho and me gone." "How?" Jania leaned forward. "How are you going to do any of that when you're in danger? When the police are looking for you everywhere? When your own brother betrayed you?" "I don't know yet." He ran his hands through his hair. "But I'll find a way. I have to." Jania wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was being foolish, that survival mattered more than justice. But she saw the set of his jaw, the determination in his eyes, and knew he would not be moved. "Okay," she said quietly. "Then we'll figure it out together." The days developed a rhythm. Ryan stayed inside, away from windows during daylight hours. He made himself useful, helping Jania mix dough for the chinchin, measuring ingredients for cookies, learning the careful way she folded the coconut candy to make it last longer without breaking. "You're not bad at this," Jania said on the third day, watching him carefully portion the batter onto a baking sheet. "My mother used to make me help in the restaurant kitchen when I was young," he said. "I hated it then, thought it was beneath me." He smiled sadly. "I was an arrogant kid. And now? Now I'd give anything to be back in that kitchen, to tell her I'm sorry for being so stupid." With his help, Jania could produce twice as much as before, which meant she could sell more and earn more. The grannies noticed her fuller baskets. "Business is good?" Mrs. Park asked, eyeing the overflowing basket of chinchin. "Just trying some new recipes," Jania said smoothly, "seeing what sells the most." At night, after Jania returned from her deliveries, they ate together at the small kitchen table. They talked about everything and nothing. About his childhood in Seoul, her childhood in Lagos. About the dreams they had carried before life got complicated. "I wanted to be a fashion designer," Jania admitted one evening. "Have my own line, and show at Fashion Week. Why didn't you? Life, she shrugged. My ex-boyfriend gambled away my savings. She noticed his expression. Korean men are quite obsessed with gambling. Tell me about him. So she did. About Min-jun, about the promises and the lies, about watching her dreams dissolve in underground casinos she had never known existed. I'm sorry, Ryan said when she finished. Don't be, I trusted the wrong person. She looked at him. Though clearly I'm still making questionable decisions, like harboring fugitives. He smiled. Questionable maybe, but I'm grateful for them. They were becoming too comfortable around each other, Jania realized. Something like friends, something that felt both dangerous and precious at the same time. On the 7th night of his second stay, Jania woke him at midnight. Get up, she whispered, and be quiet. Ryan sat up on the couch, confused. What's wrong? Nothing, just trust me. She had packed a small bag, fishing rods, a blanket, some food. Mr. Beek's truck was parked outside, borrowed again with the excuse of a late-night delivery. Where are we going? Ryan asked as he climbed into the passenger seat. Somewhere you can breathe for a few hours. She started the engine. Somewhere that isn't these four walls. They drove for 40 minutes to a neighboring town, then down a dirt road that led to a river. The moon was nearly full, painting everything silver. Jania parked near the water's edge and started unloading the truck. We're fishing, Ryan sounded disbelieving. Yeah. They set up their small camp, casted their fishing rod into the water, spread blankets on the grass, the quiet sounds of night insects filling the air. For a while, they just sat in easy silence, watching their lines. What are you going to do? Jania asked finally. After you clear your name, after you get your life back. Ryan was quiet for a long moment. I don't know, maybe go back to Seoul, try to make peace with my parents if they'll have me, maybe start over somewhere new, do something simple. He glanced at her. Maybe open a small bakery, sell chin-chin to grannies. She smiled. I forbid you from stealing my ideas. Ryan smiled too and poked her nose lightly. No, it's not, he paused. What about you? What are your plans? Well, I think I love this town. It's quiet and safe and everyone is nice. They're nice because you deserve it, he said. Jania glanced at him. You think so? 100%. They both smiled and focused on fishing. Jania, he turned to face her. What if I'm unable to find the witness and the truth? Before Jania could respond, her fishing rod jerked violently. Oh, she grabbed it, excitement rushing through her. I got something. Ryan, quick, start the fire. He blinked at her. What? The firewood. Light it, we need to roast this. He looked at the pile of wood she had brought. I don't know how to do that. What do you mean you don't know how? Just. She was wrestling with the rod, reeling it in. Use the matches, stack the wood. Why didn't you bring a grill or something? I can't afford a grill. She pulled harder, the fish fighting on the other end. And firewood gives it better taste anyway. Just light the fire. Ryan scrambled to his feet, fumbling with matches and wood, clearly having no idea what he was doing. By the time Jania landed the fish, a decent-sized bass, he had managed to create a small, smoky fire. Perfect, she said, though it was far from perfect. This is going to be so tasty. She licked her lips. Minutes after struggling with the fire, the burnt fish was ready. Completely and thoroughly burnt on the outside and somehow still raw in the middle. Ryan stared at his piece, then at Jania, then back at his piece. I thought you knew how to roast fish. I do know how to roast fish. Then why does this look like a burnt offering? Ryan asked, holding the fish up. It was your fault. If I had made the fire, the fish wouldn't have burnt. Uh-huh. He poked at the blackened skin. After all your boasting earlier, I really thought I was in for something tasty. If you don't want to eat it, give it to me. Jania reached for his piece. He pulled it away with a groan. No, I'll eat it. They ate their terrible fish in silence, trying not to laugh at how bad it was. When they finished, they lay back on the blanket, staring up at the vast expanse of stars. I want every day to be like this, Ryan said softly. Jania turned her head to look at him. It can be, as long as you want it to be. He shook his head. No, it can't. It's time to stop hiding and go back home, to really face everything. What happens next then? She asked. I don't know. He sounded tired and sad. I really don't. Jania felt something heavy settle in her chest. She wanted to tell him to forget everything. To stay here, to keep making burnt fish and bad decisions. To exist in this small bubble where the past did not matter and the future was uncertain but together. But she knew it would not last, knew it could not. She opened her mouth to say something, anything, but the words would not come. And before she could find them, exhaustion pulled her under. Her eyes drifted closed, and sleep claimed her there on the riverbank under the stars. Ryan noticed when her breathing changed and deepened. He sat up carefully and reached for the extra blanket, draping it over her sleeping form. She shifted slightly, settling into the warmth. He found himself staring at her face, peaceful in sleep, younger somehow. A strand of hair had fallen across her cheek. Without thinking, he reached out and gently brushed it away, his fingers trailing softly across her smooth skin. She had saved him, twice. This woman who owed him nothing, who had her own pain to carry, who should have turned him away that first night. He thought about going back to Seoul, about facing the truth, about clearing his name and reclaiming his life. And he thought about leaving her. The idea hurt more than it should. Ryan lay back down beside her, careful not to disturb her sleep. He stared up at the same stars she had been watching and tried to imagine a future where this did not end, where he did not have to choose between justice and this strange, unexpected peace. But he could not see it. The path ahead was dark and uncertain, and all he knew was that morning would come too soon. The next day, Jania hurried to arrange her sweets and chin-chin into the usual basket. She was running late. The trip to the river had thrown off her whole schedule. I'm leaving. She called out to Ryan, who was in the bathroom. She was getting on her bicycle when a sleek black car pulled up in front of the house. The engine purred to a stop, and the driver's door opened. Jania stood still, wondering what such an expensive car was doing in this rural town. A woman stepped out, tall, elegant, wearing a designer coat that probably cost more than Jania made in 6 months. Her hair was perfect, her makeup subtle but flawless. She looked like she belonged in a Seoul boardroom, not on a dirt road in rural Kaesong. Don't forget your cap, Ryan's voice came from behind Jania. He came out of the house holding a sunshade cap. When he saw the woman, he stopped dead. Ryan. The woman's face broke into a smile, full of relief and joy and something Jania could not quite name. She rushed forward and wrapped her arms around him. Oh my God, you're safe. I was so worried. I missed you so much. For a moment, Ryan stood stiff in her embrace. Then slowly, carefully, he pushed her back to arm's length. Yena, his voice was guarded. How did you find me? Yena's smile widened. She turned to look at Jania, who was still standing beside her bicycle, frozen in confusion. I didn't find you, Yena said. I found the witness to the murder. Ryan's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? Her, Yena gestured to Jania. She was the hotel worker who witnessed the scene. She saw everything. The world seemed to stop. Ryan turned slowly to face Jania. What is she talking about? Jania could not speak, could not move. Her worst fear standing in designer clothing in front of her house. Is it true? Ryan's voice was quiet and dangerous. Were you there, at Minho's penthouse? Jania's silence was answer enough. Did you know? His voice rose. Did you know I was the one they framed for the murder you witnessed? Jania's voice came out as a whisper. I only found out recently. Recently? When? When you left for Seoul. Then it clicked. It was her guilt that had made her help him. He laughed, the sound hollow. So you knew. This whole time you knew. When I told you about the witness, when I said they were my only hope, you knew it was you. I was scared. Scared of what? Of telling the truth? Of helping me? His hands clenched into fists. I told you everything. I trusted you. I begged you for help finding this witness, and you were right there, and you said nothing. I'm sorry, Ryan. Jania felt tears burning her eyes. I was scared to lose you. The confession hung in the air between them. What if you fail to prove your innocence and have to go back to prison? I need you here, Ryan. Yaina cleared her throat, breaking the moment. Actually, it doesn't matter anymore. We won't be needing the witness. Both Ryan and Jania turned to look at her. What? Ryan said. My investigators found evidence of security camera tampering in the building system. And more importantly, Yaina pulled out her phone, showing him something on the screen. We found footage from a traffic camera 2 blocks away. Your car, driving toward the building at 10:47 in the morning. The timestamp is verified and cannot be disputed. It proves you arrived when you said you did, not at 9 when the hotel staff claimed. Ryan stared at the phone, his expression unreadable. We have everything we need to clear your name, and your parents will testify as well, Yaina continued. Real evidence and technical proof. You don't need an unreliable witness who ran away and hid for 2 years. She shot a pointed look at Jania. You just need to come with me. Let me take you to the lawyers I've hired. We can fix this. She touched his arm gently. Thank you, she said to Jania, her voice polite. For housing him, for keeping him safe, but we'll take it from here. Yaina turned back to Ryan. Come on, let's go. Ryan stood there, the cap still in his hand. He looked at Yaina, then at Jania, then at the cap. Jania felt her heart hammering. She wanted to say something, anything, wanted to beg him not to go, wanted to tell him that she had fallen for him somewhere between the burnt fish and the quiet mornings making chin-chin. But the words were stuck in her throat. Ryan dropped the cap. It fell to the ground between them, landing in the dirt. Without a word, without looking back at Jania, he walked to Yaina's car and got in the passenger seat. Yaina smiled at Jania before sliding into the driver's seat, started the engine, and pulled away. Jania stood there, watching the black car disappear down the road, watching him leave, watching everything she had been too afraid to claim slip through her fingers. The basket of chin-chin sat forgotten at her feet. The bicycle waited, ready for deliveries she no longer cared about making. And the cap lay in the dirt, a small casualty of a truth that had come too late. She had been scared to lose him by telling the truth, and she had lost him anyway. She blamed herself for being foolish, for believing even for a moment that things could work out between them. So she went back to what she knew best: deliveries, work, and survival. A month later, Ryan's name was cleared when the real culprit was caught. His brother Siwon confessed everything. He had framed Ryan over inheritance issues and killed Minho because Minho had discovered his plans. Ryan served 1 week for escaping from custody, and after his release, he resumed his position in his father's company. His wedding to Yaina was announced shortly after. 2 months later, Jania had kept to her routine. She worked more, spoke less, smiled when required. The elderly still adored her. Life was normal. Too normal. That evening, after helping Mrs. Cho prepare winter kimchi, Jania walked back to her small wooden cabin with a neatly wrapped bundle tucked under her arm, the box of kimchi she'd earned. She planned to eat it with white rice and call it a day. Inside, she set the kimchi on the counter, rinsed the rice, and placed it in the pot. She turned on her favorite music, an old Afrobeats playlist that made the room feel warmer than it was. For the first time that day, she exhaled. Then came a knock. She frowned slightly. Mr. Kang had come for his shovel, she thought, wiping her hands on her apron. She opened the door. It was Mr. Kang. Ryan stood there. In a tailored suit, hair neatly styled. His shoulders broader and everywhere suddenly felt small with his majestic presence. He looked like he belonged in boardrooms and press conferences, not in front of her weathered cabin door. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Hi, she finally managed. His lips curved faintly. Is that how you greet someone you haven't seen in a long time? The familiarity of his tone cracked something inside her. I'm sorry, she said quickly, stepping aside. Come in. They stood facing each other in her small sitting room. The cabin suddenly felt too tight for all the things left unsaid. I should have told you the truth back then, Jania blurted. About everything. I was afraid. I didn't want. It wasn't your fault, Ryan interrupted gently. I understand. The way he said it, calm and certain, made her chest ache more than anger ever could have. He glanced toward the kitchen. "What were you cooking? I'm starving." She stared at him. He had just walked back into her life after months of silence, after a public engagement announcement, after she spent nights convincing herself she had imagined everything between them. And he was asking about food. "Rice and kimchi," she answered slowly, turning toward the kitchen. He removed his suit jacket and followed her, rolling up his sleeves like he used to. "Can I help?" "No," she said quickly. He noticed the stiffness in her shoulders, the careful way she avoided looking at him. This wasn't the bold, bossy Jania who used to scold him for cutting chin unevenly. He stepped closer and gently turned her to face him. They stood inches apart. "Are you not happy to see me?" he asked quietly. She blinked up at him. "I am." "Then what's wrong?" Her jaw tightened. "Your fiancé might not appreciate you being here." A flicker of realization passed through his eyes. "I'm not marrying Yena." Her breath caught. "I'm not marrying anyone but you, Jania." She stepped back as if the words burned. "That's not possible," she said, voice shaking. "I'm African, your family won't consent to us." "It doesn't matter, Dates, long as we love each other." Silence fell between them, heavy and honest. She searched his face. "Do you love me?" He didn't hesitate. "Yes." The simplicity of it made her eyes sting. She hit his chest lightly, not in anger but in hurt. "Then why did it take you so long to come back?" His expression faltered. Because he had wanted to return to her as a man, not a fugitive, not a burden. But instead of explaining all that, he did the only thing that felt true. He cupped her face gently and kissed her. Slow at first, then he deepened it with so much affection. Her hands clutched his shirt at first in surprise, then slowly softened. The rice boiled over in the background, and the music played softly, adding more warmth to the steam in the cabin. Outside, the town lights flickered on one by one. Tomorrow, people would talk. But tonight, in a small cabin that smelled like kimchi and steamed rice, healing began.